Thank you. Please stand by. You will now be placed into conference.
And she's going to be addressing, as you can tell by the screen here, we're going to be addressing two other social media platforms, both Twitter and LinkedIn. So I'm not going to take up any more time, and I'm just going to introduce Cammie, and we'll get started.
Thanks for that introduction, Bill. So today we are going to cover how to utilize Twitter and LinkedIn for your business. These are the second two most popular platforms behind Facebook, and the way you market on them is a little bit different, as you'll see in the presentation. Feel free to chat in your questions if you have any at any time, and we will try to address them as the webinar gets going. So first, let's start with Twitter. Twitter is a platform that some people tend to shy away from because they don't know much about it. But it's actually very popular. It got started in March of 2006, so has been around about 8 years. Currently, there are more than 36 million unique monthly visitors, which is a ton of eyeballs to get your content in front of. There's also 255 million active monthly users. And the difference between those, when I say unique versus monthly, a unique visitor is someone who has not visited that site or your page before. The monthly users is cumulative, so it could be someone coming back 2, 3, 4, 5, 100 times. Unique just counts each person as one visit. There are also over 100 million daily active users. Twitter is a very instant news source. It's where people want to release information that's timely, that is relevant in the moment. So at any given time when I'm logged into my Twitter feed and I leave it alone for even 5 minutes, I could come back and have 100 new tweets to sort through. That's how quickly information gets updated. And lastly, there are more than 500 million tweets sent every day. So while that's a lot of information, it's just to say that this is a great platform to be on because there are tons of people on it, but also this is where your competition is, and this is where you need to be in order to compete with them. So let's talk about a few myths about Twitter and debunk them, per se. So myth number 1, Twitter will make you famous overnight. I've heard this so many times, but the truth is it takes a little bit of work. And I like to explain that with a quote. Opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. So a lot of the questions that we get about Twitter are, how do I build a following? How fast will it take to build this following? How fast will I become popular and relevant? And the answer to that is that it just takes time. It's going to be different for everybody. Twitter is one of those platforms where, since it is so instantaneous, you do have to tweet out a little bit more content to build up that following.
You know, Cammie, you kind of, a couple of things. I love the quote. I used to wear overalls when I used to work in the greenhouse business. But, yeah, it's a lot of work. And that's, I think, a general perception of social media in general, that it's a lot of work.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the fear of trying to use all these different ones and, not really understanding how they all work. But, for example, on this one, when you're saying building a relevant following, what would you say what would be some tips or strategies on building a strategy to get an audience and get a following?
That is a great question, Bill. So one of the ways to do that would be to check out people's bios when you're scrolling through followers and see if there are any keywords in there that relate to the type of business that you do. So if you're a plastic surgeon, you would want to look for keywords such as plastic surgery or even broader like fitness and health and things like that, and look at people who are tweeting things about your business or that are relevant to your business.
So it's not too dissimilar than Googling keywords. You're doing a similar thing in the social media platform, looking for relevant people who are already doing, topics that are similar to you.
Exactly,
Okay.
and I may have mentioned this in my previous webinar, but Twitter is a mini search engine of sorts. So it is like a mini Google for people to come and search hashtags or search topics that are relevant that they want to know about, and Twitter will pull up all of the tweets that either have an @ mention related to that keyword or have a hashtag related to that keyword.
Great.
So those are a couple of things that you want to consider when building a relevant following.
Great. Thanks.
Myth number 2, and I hear this one a lot. I don't think Twitter is right for my business. Truth be told, this is where your audience is. Like I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, Twitter has more than 36 million unique visitors each month. That means that in addition to the other 560 million users that are coming to the platform, there are 36 million new people on top of that. So it is a humongous audience that is on here.
I also think it's the same demographics that most of our clients are also looking for too. If you can kind of categorize them by, demographic characteristics, I would have to agree.
Definitely. Twitter is the second most popular platform right behind Facebook. So it's very likely that if your audience is on Facebook, they're going to be on Twitter as well.
Yeah, true.
And one other point that I just wanted to make about this myth is that the Twitter feed is constantly updated with new tweets and news. Unlike Facebook, Twitter will not filter your feed. So that means that there's a lot of competition because tweets are constantly being sent out, but it's also a great platform for you to tweet evergreen content. And by that I mean content that is lasting. So that's like blog posts, presentations, videos, and you could tweet them several times a day. So the great thing about Twitter is that your audience may not be on in the morning, but they may be on at night. So you can tweet the same thing in the morning and in the evening and reach 2 different audiences.
Oh, interesting. You usually would think of just tweeting it once and you're done. Actually, frequency may not be your enemy when you're really wanting to drive people to certain things.
It's definitely not your enemy. I was reading an article the other day that said the maximum amount of tweets you would want to tweet per day was 22, and that sounded like a lot to me. Because
like
Facebook and the other platforms are like once a day.
Yeah.
So if you're tweeting a couple times a day even, that's great, and you have the potential to reach your audience at several touch points.
Okay, great.
One last myth. You have to keep your personal separate from your business posts. Okay, so just to take this back a little bit, a step back. This might be true a little bit because you want to keep your personal postings a little bit separate, but not completely separate. So what I mean by that is personally, you might be interested in mountain biking or rock music or going to concerts. And feel free to tweet that stuff on your personal feed, but be careful about how much you're sharing that on your business feed. You can post a little bit. There can be a little bit of overlap, but there are certainly some topics you should save for your personal and some topics that you should save for your business. And we'll go over that in a little bit more detail in a couple of slides.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're, because I'm just thinking not all practices understand the difference between a personal and your corporate or your business, updates or accounts, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd just be clear on that.
Okay, yeah. So I'll expand on that a little bit. Twitter is nice because it does not require you to have a separate personal account and a separate business account like Facebook and Google Plus do. You can have just one account for your business.
Okay.
But there are some people who do choose to have a personal as well as one for their business.
Okay.
So what I was attempting to get across is if you do have those 2 separate profiles, it's good to post different content on each.
That makes it a little more clear. Okay, great. Thanks.
Also, when you're thinking about posting to your business page, you want to portray the human aspect of it.
And what do you mean by human? When you say human, what does that mean?
So One of the things we hear a lot is our customers aren't really sure what we do outside of work.
Okay.
Do we strictly work on teeth and that's all we do? So what I mean by humanizing your business is posting about things you do outside of work.
Okay.
So if you're involved in community activities or groups outside of work, if you have any outside hobbies, then post about that kind of stuff too. That's how you're going to reach your audience, because chances are you have interests that overlap.
Yeah, and I'm thinking almost all of our clients' businesses, they participate in different fundraisers. They do other, gift-giving types of things, especially during the holiday time. People are pretty generous with their time and stuff. So, yeah, you need to be leveraging those types of things.
Yes, and fundraisers and events are great to post about. If you support breast cancer awareness, there are lots of people who also support that, and chances are part of those people are your audience. Or if there's a local festival happening, like we always have a summer Boulder Creek Festival where there's tons of vendors that come, and you're at that kind of stuff, post pictures of you at that, or of you and your family at that. And that just helps give your business a little bit of a personality.
Okay. That sounds great. Hey, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. We have, as far as our first giveaway, we're giving away an Amazon gift card, and this is going to Ashley Page. So, Ashley, if you can just chat in, make sure you're still on the webinar, we'll make sure you get that.
Okay, and just one more point to debunk that myth. People are more likely to connect with you on a personal level before they are likely to connect with you on a business level. Meaning, the more personal you make the connection, the more likely that person will be to interact with you on your business page. So a good example would be meeting your client face-to-face, and like when they come into your office either for a consultation or a review of sorts, ask them how their day is going, how their job's going, how their day at work went, and just start that conversation and make it natural and organic. And don't just jump right into the asking for reviews or asking when they want to schedule their next appointment. They are way more likely to want to make that second touch point after they've had a little bit of personal interaction with you. And we do apologize about the technical difficulty. It looks like the slides just showed up. So if you haven't been seeing them earlier, we will be posting them and sending them out as well. But hopefully you can see them moving forward. So I've been talking about this personal connection. How do you go about creating that? It's about establishing the relationships when your clients come into the office and even online, because often online is the first interaction or touch point that you're going to have with someone. People come online to search for a solution to their problems. Often they have stained teeth and need teeth whitening, or they might have some blemishes on their face and would like some work done and would like to know more about how much that costs or what's available to them, or they've been in a car accident of sorts and need some help but don't know where to turn. Online is where they're going to go first. So that's your first opportunity to show them, hey, this is what we offer to solve your problem, but we're also human and we want to establish that connection with you. So again, like I said, asking them questions just about how their day went. Think about them as your friends almost, and establish that connection at the beginning and keep fostering that. You don't want it to just be a one-time, hey, how's it going, how's your day? You want them to come back continually, and you do that by fostering that relationship after the appointment is over even.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that you find is that it's just participating in it. It's just letting them know that you're online and that you're seeing the stuff.
Yeah.
I think is probably a validation that, that there is some connection there.
Absolutely. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about what Twitter is and how we can use it, let's talk about what metrics you should measure. I went to a conference recently and got the chance to speak with a Twitter specialist, actually, and she had some really interesting things to say. And one of the most important points that I took away from her presentation was that unless you can monetize it, the numbers, your followers, your retweets, your favorites, they aren't as important. A lot of people are worried about social ROI. So I'm giving this much to social media, but what am I getting out of it? And that is a constant struggle for even large companies to measure. But it's just not, the numbers are not as important as the business that you see coming through your door.
Okay. I think you're right. We get kind of caught up in we get all excited about numbers, but it really does boil down to really what's happening as a result of the, engagement or the exposure. I think that's probably even more important.
I think people sometimes see it as a popularity contest. Who can get the most followers? Who can get the most retweets? And that's not to say that those metrics are not important, because they certainly are to a degree. A person who has 1,000 followers but is also following like 1,500 people is going to be more of an influencer and someone that you want to watch than someone who is only following 100 people and maybe only has 5 followers.
Gotcha.
So that's just one thing to keep in mind. All right, so before we move on a little bit, I want to give you some key takeaways to dominate Twitter and then talk a little bit about some ideas for postings. So the 4 keys. First, connect with influencers and engage with like-minded users.
Well, when you say influencers, I've heard that term loosely used, and I can kind of get an idea by just what it is, but give me an idea when you're talking about a Twitter audience. What would determine an influencer, or what do you consider an influencer?
That's a really great question, and it's a little bit hard to nail down, but an influencer would be somebody who is followed by quite a few people, but also gets a lot of retweets and pushes out really relevant content that's related to your business.
Okay, so retweeting is a good measure of an influencer. So it's not that they're just cranking out a bunch of stuff that nobody really cares about?
No, it's that they are taking the time to retweet others' content and share other people's content as well, and that content is in turn getting reshared. So that could be businesses such as the ASPS, or it could even be an individual person who has a knowledge of your niche.
Right, or there's synergistic businesses, or even consultants. All of our industries that we work with have consultants that are also participating, in these things as well.
Yeah. And an influencer is not necessarily defined by how many followers they have or how many people are following them, but it is more likely the higher their follower count, the more likely they are to be an influencer and have that knowledge.
The more influential they can be. Okay.
Those are going to be the people, too, who engage in the conversation with you. So if you tweet at them, they will tweet you back.
Okay.
And they're really good people to ask questions of and bounce ideas off of.
Great. Yeah, you're right. Actually, when I've done it or seen it, the ones that I actually do is when it's almost a direct engagement, as opposed to just casually just retweeting something. But if you're actually directly doing something with them, yeah, I think you're right. You get more engagement with them.
Exactly. Second tip would be to find real-time leads. So you can use Twitter as sort of a mini search engine, like I was saying, to identify an audience. So one way we do this is by searching a hashtag keyword. So if you are a plastic surgeon and you're looking for an audience, I would take the search a little bit more broadly and focus on fitness topics, health topics, recipes and food, people who are tweeting about that kind of stuff, and start there, and then you can always narrow it down.
Okay, so it's better to be a little more broader than to start out so niche that you don't really have a an audience, basically.
Right, because there's going to be way more people tweeting about health tips or what they just made for dinner than about getting a breast augmentation or
rhinoplasty or something, or
yeah.
smile makeover or something.
Exactly.
Okay. I would have to agree with that.
And once you find those people, you want to offer them something. So it could be something like a free consultation if you offer that, or it could be 20% off of a service you offer, something like that. But you want to draw them in to want to look at your business more and get to know you on a more business level.
Can you do things that are more limited? And I've heard of strategies where they say, to our Twitter followers or Twitter, and the only people that are going to see that promotion is just their Twitter people. So it almost feels like that offer is somewhat special to my special friends or my special connections kind of thing. So
I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, because the more exclusive you make your audience feel, the more special they will feel and the more likely they are to actually want to contact you.
Great. Yeah.
So doing Twitter-only specials is a great idea. Third, target your followers. You need to manage them. This is something that you should be working on every day. I say should, and I know that sounds a little scary. If you're touching it at least every week, that's probably good enough. But what I mean by manage is going through and unfollowing people who are not active or who are not engaging with you, going in and following new people, doing searches for new audience members, and just making sure that you're keeping your list updated.
It's not too different than like database marketing. You can be sending out wasting a lot of time sending out stuff that, it's just a waste of time. Sometimes you got to just clean up that database a little bit.
Exactly.
And you're going to be more effective with the time that you do spend.
Exactly. And lastly, don't be afraid to push out evergreen content. I talked a little bit about this earlier. By evergreen, I mean content that's going to be relevant today, tomorrow, 2 months, 6 months, a year down the line. It never loses its value. So this is topics like blogs, videos, presentations, anything that is more of a patient question. So I always say FAQs are great evergreen content. Whenever someone comes into your office, ask them what questions they have about what you do, and generate a document that has those frequently asked questions, and then blog about them, and in turn retweet that content. And like I said, Twitter is such a constantly updating social source that you can tweet something out in the morning and tweet it out again at night, and you'll be reaching 2 totally different audiences.
Yeah, so I would suggest that. If there's something that you're really wanting to promote or something that you're trying to drive out there, absolutely, at least tweet it, twice a day.
Yeah.
Twice in one day.
I definitely agree. All right, some content ideas. So once you've decided that Twitter is the platform for you, what do you post about? You can use motivational quotes. Those are very popular, either in just a text format or an image. I will say that images on Twitter get 75% more retweets than just regular text tweets, but either way will work. Be humorous and funny. If there is a joke about your profession, like I know there's a bunch of dental jokes out there. If you just search Pinterest or even Google it, you can find tons of funny things that people say about dentistry. And again, that goes back to making your business a little bit more human. You can also post articles related to your personal interests. Like I was saying earlier, if you like to mountain bike, if you like to go boating, if you like to write on the weekends, post about that kind of stuff. Also, you can give social media tips. There are quite a few people on Twitter, even just businesses, that give quick tips about social media, either industry-related or just general. You can expand on that and give out company news. This is a great place for you to let people know that you hired someone new and you're excited about them in your office, or that you just got this new piece of technology and you want to tell everyone about it. Also, like Bill was mentioning earlier, promotions and blogs are great topics, as well as inviting people to guest blog.
And one thing that you kind of mentioned in earlier was the personal interest. And just, I see a lot of, when I used to talk to plastic surgeons, I used to ask them, what do you do in your spare time? And when they say, oh, I do, painting, I do sculpture, I compose music. I mean, that is definitely a side of the brain that really, kind of leads to an interest in plastic or cosmetic types of surgeries. Or if I've got, attorneys that actually, they are active bike riders. They are out there, and, there's an audience that they're trying to connect with, and those are bike riders.
Mm-hmm.
So those things, if there's anything that you do or your people are, in their personal lives can connect with, especially when it's relating to your business, I think those are great, great things to be, or areas of topics that are of value.
And you gave a great example with the biking and the lawyers. So I know there's a National Bike Safety Month, or like Wear Your Helmet Month. That would be a great opportunity for you to not only promote that, but also let people know that that's one of your interests.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and just some closing thoughts on Twitter before we move on to LinkedIn. When you're starting out your campaign, just think about, what is your overall marketing goal for social media? Is it brand awareness? Is it generating leads? Is it getting more engagement? Make sure that's defined at the beginning before you start posting. Also think about how you define your ideal customer. Who is it that you want to come into your office and perform services with? Also think about, what you want from them, but what do your customers want from you? This is a tough question because it might not always be that they want your services. They might want to know how much they cost. They might want to laugh when they come into your office, or they might want just like a humorous quote, or they might just want some simple information about plastic surgery or dentistry, or even their legal case. So don't be afraid to ask them what they would like from you in return.
That's actually a good idea. Just if you don't ask, sometimes you'll never know.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And think about, what do they care about outside of your brand or service? Oftentimes, and I will beg to say all the time, your customers are going to have outside interests. So I know going to the dentist, people don't always like that. So find out what they like outside of coming to the dentist and what would make them more comfortable coming into your practice, and use that to your advantage and market that. Lastly, I've mentioned this a couple of times, people are not searching for solutions, they're searching for their problems. Be that solution to their problem.
Great idea. I'm going to go ahead and announce our second winner, and that is for a Best Buy gift card, and that is Mr. Floyd Ivey, I-V-E-Y. So Floyd, if you're still on the webinar, if you could go ahead and chat in, we'll make sure that you get that.
All right, and so now we'll move into LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the definitive professional publishing platform. 1 out of every 3 professionals on the planet is on LinkedIn. That's how popular it is. Content and group pages get 6 times more page views than job postings. So this is a great place to generate brand awareness, generate traffic and leads, and lead people back to your website, and also build a community. And I'll talk a little bit more about how you can do that. So let's start with a couple tips about how to market on LinkedIn. The 2 big parts of LinkedIn are your personal profile and a company page. And I'll start talking about the company page, and we'll focus mostly on how you can use that to your advantage, and talk a little bit about personal when we go into the group discussion. But you can use a company page to engage your audience and establish your presence online. So LinkedIn is a great place to talk about the more business and professional side rather than being fun and humorous. But it's a great place to attract followers and engage them with questions and starting a discussion with them. So I'll talk about this a little bit later, but groups are a great place to do this. Creating a group or even joining groups You can ask questions and get feedback from other like-minded individuals and get the conversation flowing so that you can even generate topic ideas for your blogs or other social platforms. LinkedIn is a great way to amplify your content. So visuals are huge on LinkedIn. Videos and slide shares get 75% more shares than just regular text or article updates. Also, this is a great place to help your business stand out. Like I just mentioned, using images can even lead to 98% higher comment rates. So it's a great place to use any sort of visual content.
Now, when you're saying that, and I've always seen LinkedIn as a personal thing, almost like it's a recruitment, as everybody used to say. Yep. It's a recruitment or a job placement, platform, but I think it's much more than that. So in terms of, what's out there on your, what is really the difference, say, between my personal LinkedIn profile and, say, a company? A lot of businesses don't even have a LinkedIn business profile.
Great question. So the content that gets shared on company pages is definitely more white papers, or if you've written some sort of research article and documentation, and very serious content. So it's the very data-driven and very business-oriented stuff. Versus posting on your personal profile is more of a place to showcase yourself. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if we have a law firm, each lawyer is going to have their own individual legal profile, but then the firm as a whole should have a company page separately. Okay. So on the individual lawyer profiles, they could post about verdicts that they accomplished individually, or cases that they've been working on within the legalities of posting about that type of stuff. And then on the company page, they would want to share company successes. Okay. So that would be more broad topics about what topic areas they represent, and even white papers about social media for lawyers, gotcha. Stuff like that. Okay. The one downside to LinkedIn is that you don't get very much SEO value from your company pages. It's way more focused on personal profiles.
Oh, okay. So why would that be, though? Why would you get very little SEO boost from that?
Google just doesn't crawl company pages as much, and there's not as much opportunity to expand on your business's, what's the word I'm looking for? Niche. Okay. On the company page. So okay. The company page is very much focused on snippets of content, okay. And saying, this is when we were first set up, this is our bio, this is an image of what our office is.
Because I really don't see too many business, when I do searches, but when I search for names and stuff, boy, LinkedIn's like one of the first things that shows up. It's
absolutely. So personal pages on LinkedIn have way more SEO value.
I do think that's a good point, though, is when I Google my name, or if you Google your own name, if you have a LinkedIn profile, I'm pretty sure your LinkedIn profile is going to be on that first page somewhere, and sometimes it's the very first listing. So making sure that when people and consumers do, Google the doctor's or the attorney's name to just check them out, absolutely make sure your LinkedIn stuff is good.
And that's a great point, because when you have a company page and a personal profile, like you said, it's way more likely that when you Google someone, you're going to find their personal LinkedIn profile. But once you get there, you want to have the company page linked from your personal profile.
That's a good idea. I don't think I've done that.
So that you can cross-promote your business.
Great.
All right, so who's doing it right when it comes to company pages? I tried to find a really good, relevant syndication example, but there weren't too many out there. So I wanted to use Capital One. One of the things that they do really well with their company page is they have a very eye-catching cover image. Unlike Facebook, the cover image is not as large, but it is still the first thing that users see when they come to your company page. So it's what they're going to associate with your brand. Below it comes the bio page, or the bio information, I'm sorry. And what they've done really well here is done a quick snippet at the beginning and then put some code in so that you have to read more and you have to click the button to expand it. Users scan content a lot more often these days. So the shorter you can make your information and the more information you can cram into that little space, the more likely someone is to read the entire thing, but also to get to know you better. The next example is an industry example, and I just want to show you some of the key differences. So the profile image is actually the two logos, and it cuts off at the bottom of the logos in the white space. What's a little bit difficult about this is that it is just white space. So it looks like two logos sitting side by side, and it's a little bit confusing to tell which company is being promoted. Also, the bio is super long. It's about a paragraph, and there is no option to select read more to expand if someone did want to read the entire thing. What I would have suggested is then cutting it off after the third line and asking people if they want to read more. Also, what they did at the end was crammed some of their other social media links without too many spaces, so it looks a little bit spammy.
Yeah, it does.
What they did right, though, was fill in all of the information. So it's important that they have all of this, that there's a link back to their website, that it says what industry they represent, when they were founded, where they're located. That's all really important information to have on your company page. So what types of things can you post about to help improve your LinkedIn profile? First, you're going to want to optimize your content. Always ask, why would my audience want to read this? Again, since LinkedIn is such a professional platform, you're going to want to think about posting more professional content. So like I said, it's white papers, blogs, videos that answer some sort of how-to or even just an FAQ. So for dentists, it could be a video about teeth whitening. What is it? How much does it cost? What goes into the process? Something like that. For lawyers, it could be expanding on an area of your expertise. So what do I do after a car accident? And answering that in video format. So again, like I said, more professional content. Also, make sure you're using concise and compelling intros and headlines. People scan. People want quick information, and they want it now. So the shorter the intro can be, or just the short snippet, the more likely people are to read it and or watch it. If you give them a teaser and then put a link to your expanded white paper, you're more likely to get clicks to that white paper because you have a teaser and people will want to read that content. So an example would be, want to know the top 10 secrets to get whiter teeth, and then put a link to your white paper about teeth whitening. That way, it's not like, hey, here's my content, please read it. It's a little bit more exciting and compelling.
Yeah, I think you just need to be a little creative and not necessarily just say what it is, but kind of, you know, again, give them a little peek or a little taste, and and they'll click into it. People
think professional and sometimes associate that with boring, but I think that is far from the case. Like Bill said, just be a little bit creative.
Yeah, I think words like tips, you know, keys or helpful things, that, you know, that's what people are looking for.
Exactly. Also, make sure you're optimizing your visuals. So by that, I just mean mix it up a little bit. Use an image, and then use a video, and then post a thumbnail of your presentation. But don't use the same imagery all the time. It's okay to do that on other platforms, but LinkedIn, since it is more professional, they like to see that content is changing and that you're posting new types of things. So don't always post the same types of blogs or content or presentations. And on that note, make sure if you are posting a thumbnail that links to an article that it's relevant. So by that, I just mean that the thumbnail relates to the content well, that when someone sees your thumbnail, so say I'm a dentist and I am talking about the top 10 tips for dentistry, that maybe I use a toothbrush, or maybe I use a picture of myself with some dentistry tools. You're not going to want to use like a generic smiling face or someone with a question bubble above their head. It's not, those examples are not as relevant. Also, when it comes to managing updates, we suggest that you plan an editorial calendar in advance, but also react to timely events. So plan your content in advance and have some ideas of what you want to post. I'm sure that a lot of you have an idea of what you'd like to do for the future, but put that into an Excel document and schedule it out. That way you don't have to worry about it. You can just do it once a month. But then if something comes up, be ready to post about it.
Right. I think the timely events are the other thing is a lot of things happen and we just don't even, it's not even on our radar. You know, for if you're an attorney and you see something on a cruise ship accident, you know, ship runs aground or something, absolutely something you should be blogging about or tweeting about or linking in about. It's just making sure that those events are on your, on your radar.
Absolutely. So the point there being, don't be afraid to post additional content if you choose to go the scheduling route.
Great.
Also respond to comments and group discussions regularly. I will get into that in the next slide in just a second. And don't be afraid to engage over the weekend. Experiment, experiment, experiment. And that's a theme that I'm kind of going to give over the next webinar as well, is there is no cookie-cutter way that works for everyone. So don't be afraid to try posting on a Saturday at 2 o'clock because you think your audience might not be online. They might.
And our last, I'm going to interject here. I got another giveaway, and it's a Barnes & Noble gift card, and this one's going to Penelope Lasitra. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So if you can log in as well or just chat with us, we'll make sure that you get that.
All right, and the last topic I wanted to cover before we open it up to questions are LinkedIn groups. These are a little bit different than a company page, and you can either join them or create one yourself. And you are going to want to join ones that are relevant to your practice area. So if you're a lawyer, it could be legal marketing tips. It could be personal injury lawyer group discussion. It could be a car accident attorneys group. These are a great place for like-minded individuals to bounce ideas off of each other. So the example that I've given here is from a group that I'm currently in, social media marketing group. And so the guy just asked and started out by saying, if someone asked for your best networking tip, what would you tell them? And opened the question up to the entire group and got more than 80 comments in, I would say, less than 6 hours.
Wow.
So people started responding right after he posted it. And it's been a great topic because you give your tip, and then it's nice to read other people, and they feed off of each other. So someone responded to my tip and said, hey, that's a great tip. Did you think about this? And then the girl below her said, hey, that's also great. Here's my networking tip. So for a plastic surgeon, it could be asking about what's the most popular procedure that you perform at your practice, and just getting a gauge for what other surgeons in your area are doing and performing, whether that's to learn more about that topic or to market that more if that's the type of business that you would like. If you are going to start your own group, I would recommend making it open so that anyone can join it. unless you have a very targeted group of individuals that you would like opinions from. But the nice thing about having an open group is that anyone can share in it, and you could even get opinions from someone who you didn't think would have something to say about plastic surgery or dentistry, but they actually have a really good tip.
Yeah, I think these groups are really important in terms of interacting with them. What types of, so when you say types of groups, when, say, for example, give me an example of, say, a dental group or a plastic surgery group or a legal group. What kind of groups? Because there's a ton of them out there. I mean,
yeah, there are. So one of the legal groups that we were looking at the other day was a legal marketing group.
Okay.
And the lawyers who had joined that group were looking for tips on how to market their legal practice.
Okay. And
bouncing ideas off of each other, like, hey, we're posting in this magazine, and these are the results we've seen.
Right.
Or we're on Facebook, and it seems to be working well for us. The only thing about groups that I would stay away from is self-promotion.
Right.
So it's more about the discussion and less about, hey, go check us out on Facebook, please.
Yeah. I think you make a good point. I think if you're looking at and searching for groups to join and participate in, it has to be something that you're interested in. If you don't have an interest in it, don't do it for the sake of just trying to push your stuff out there. You know, some of those are going to be some niche groups. Like I'm in a TMJ group for dentistry, and some of the discussions are fabulous in there. Those are, but you gotta have an interest in TMJ, otherwise don't join it just because you want to get in front of dentists.
Exactly, and that's a great example of sort of a more niche group that you joined. Do you want to tell them a little bit more about the question that you asked and the response you got?
You know, I asked about mouth guards, because I actually have a mouth guard, but I started developing what I thought was TMJ symptoms as a result of it, because it was a snore guard and it pulls my jaw forward, and was that changing my jaw alignment and causing me to have other TMJ-related issues? And I had a genuine interest in it, and I probably got about 40 or 50 different, engagements on it and different perspective. Great stuff. Really good stuff.
Yeah, so groups are a great way to get that discussion going and even to participate in other discussions.
Super.
So one last point before we end and open it up to questions. I just want to say, don't forget about mobile. Mobile is where it's at, and make sure that you are optimizing your postings for mobile. As this graph shows, people are on their phones all day. It doesn't peak really, except at 9 o'clock, and then they're on for the rest of the day until they go to bed around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. The other platforms, laptops and tablets, peak in the middle of the day when people are at work. So like I was saying earlier, don't be afraid to post outside of business hours, because chances are people are on their desktop computers during the workday, but they'll be on their tablet or mobile phone at night checking for updates.
That's my wife in bed. She has her tablet right next to her the nightstand all the time. That's her. Definitely she's skewing that statistic.
Oh, that is definitely me. I check all sorts of social media platforms before I go to bed. So don't be afraid to post outside of business hours, experiment, try new things. Hopefully this has been helpful for you guys today, and we'll open it up to questions. So if you'd like to chat them in.
One question that we have is, it's on LinkedIn, and it's about, going out and seeking, and getting, sending out invitations. Is there a limit on the number of LinkedIn invitations you can send out?
Great question. So there is not an explicit limit. LinkedIn, on the down low, puts a limit around 100 a day, but they are okay with you connecting with more people on a daily basis as long as you're both accepting each other. If you get a lot of rejections, that will flag LinkedIn that maybe you are trying to connect with people who don't want to connect with you and it's a little spammy.
Right.
But as long as you're connecting with people and they're accepting you back and you each add each other to your networks, there shouldn't be any sort of problem there.
Okay. So, and in that line, what would be some strategies on how to find, relevant, people to link into?
So we were actually doing this the other day for one of our clients, and what we started with was just picking one of their connections that they had quite a few people in that were similar connections, and going through their similar connections list and connecting with people that they weren't currently connected to that way. And LinkedIn will actually give you suggestions as well and say, oh, I see you are connected to so-and-so who is connected to so-and-so on the second degree. Maybe you guys have something in common. The only trouble with that is it will always ask you, or usually ask you, to identify how you know that person. And just a little insider tip, don't use the I don't know this person button, because LinkedIn will then kick you out and say, we prefer that you connect with people that you know that are relevant to you, and will not allow you to connect with that person in the future. So either flag them as a colleague or someone that you met in a group. Again, groups are great places to make connections as well, to start looking for people you want to engage with.
Now, when people do, say somebody invites you, I get invitations to LinkedIn literally daily. And I'm trying to be somewhat judicious. What would be a strategy for a practice in terms of who do you accept and who do you don't accept?
That's a really great question, and that might take a little bit more time. So what I always do when people request to connect with me is go and check out their profile, see if we have anything in common, see who or what connections we have in common, because I might not recognize their name at first, but then I see, oh, they're connected to so-and-so who I work with. And then I'm definitely more apt to accept that connection. So I would say accept people who have something in common with you or are connected with people you know. If you don't know them or don't have any connections, be a little wary. I wouldn't say automatically press the decline button, but just check them out a little bit.
Gotcha. Okay. That sounds great. Well, we're actually slightly past the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and end here. If you have any additional questions, please email them. We will answer every one of them. And so we're going to go ahead and end with one more giveaway, and that giveaway is for an iPod Nano, and that is going to Sarah Wisner, W-I-S-N-E-R. So, Sarah, if you're on the webinar, please chat in, and we will make sure that you get that as well. Again, thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Tammy, for all the great information. And we will see you at the next webinar, and we will be discussing another social media platform next Wednesday.
Thanks so much, guys. I hope you come back next week to talk about Google+.
Great. Thank you.
The chairperson has disconnected. The conference will now end.